As you heard in the SportsCenter update, the Atlanta Hawks fired coach Nate McMillan on Tuesday. That clears the way for an immediate search that will start with leading candidate Quinn Snyder, sources told ESPN. Key, here's the question.
Yeah.
Can Trae Young be the primary scoring option, like the guy on a real championship contender?
Primary scoring option? Of course he could be the primary scoring option, but that doesn't mean that he is the primary reason for winning the championship. But he could, of course, because he could score. So it doesn't mean that he has to, like, because he scores 26 a game and somebody else scores 24.
If he's your number one, you need a number two that's close to him, and you need a good defense.
Yeah, but you got to have the better question would be, can a guy his size win a championship?
What's the answer?
Probably no. And you say, well, what about Steph Curry? Come on, man. You just Steph Curry got a lot of stuff, a lot of different stuff. Plus, he had a lot of great players around him and all those sort of things.
Can a guy his size win a championship as the best offensive player on the team, you mean? Because you could put enough stuff around any guy, you could win a championship.
Yeah, but if Trae Young
is a max
contract, if you expected Trae Young to do it all by himself, it's not going to happen.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
You know, one of the things
this is not LeBron James.
No.
You know, smaller guys at the guard position, it doesn't necessarily equate to championship, so to speak.
No, it doesn't. Isaiah Thomas is an outlier.
But that was 100 years ago, too.
But even then it was an outlier. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons he's one of the greatest players ever. So Trae Young, it seems to me, what I really like about him is Steph Curry kind of showed the way.
Yeah.
And he's doing a Steph Curry, but mostly with moxie. Like, he has the guts to play that way. He doesn't shoot like Steph. No. He's not this incredible shooter. He's just willing to take those shots. He's not scared.
He's a very good NBA basketball player, all-star guy.
Yeah.
High-level NBA player is what he is.
How much do you think the draft day trade for Luka Doncic plays into how Trae Young is seen? Because they were traded for each other. I mean, they had to throw in a little stuff too, but so it wasn't just Trae for Luka. It was Trae plus some little stuff for Luka, but still basically traded for each other. So now, whatever Trae does, people are going to look at Luka.
Luka has more hype behind him, publicity, so to speak. But you know what I'm going to say. What am I going to say?
Same thing.
Same thing, man. Both have.
Is it?
Why isn't it?
Well, tell me why it is.
Okay, so let's just start off on the negative side.
Sure.
Both have gotten coaches fired, right?
That's right. Okay. So far, so good.
So far, so good, right?
Yeah.
They both have been in the All-Stars.
Both shoot a lot, but aren't incredible shooters.
Both shoot a lot, not incredible shooters. Both have gotten bounced out of the playoffs. Same thing, man. Like, literally. Oh, Luka has more upside. He's going to be the face of the league. Okay, all right. Win.
Well, you just said Trae Young is too small. Is Luka too small?
No, but Luka's in the same position.
It's the
same thing. Luka went out and got Kyrie now. Okay, so now the excuse is all offense, no defense. How are they going to coexist with each other? What is it going to look like down the stretch when they run into the Denvers and the Clippers and all these other teams?
Do you think Luka is an MVP caliber player?
Yeah, I think he's an MVP caliber player.
Do you think Trae is an MVP caliber player? Because I agree. Trae is an all-star. Luka, he's not an MVP because he doesn't defend, but he's just almost there.
I think, to me, when you start talking about like MVP, there's a lot that go into being the MVP. You've got to be the MVP. Your team has got to be championship caliber, right? Now are the Mavericks championship caliber?
They've advanced in the playoffs. I mean, so have the Hawks, but
they both advanced in the playoffs.
The Hawks won one playoff series,
and Mavericks won two.
Yeah,
yay! But I mean, okay, so we have these conversations about teams going one step further, whether it's the Buffalo Bills versus the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. They didn't win.
Wait a minute, Key.
It's the same thing.
You would say someone who got to the conference championship has done more than a guy who just won the divisional round, right? Or won the wild card round.
It turns out to be the same thing, though, because it's all about how it falls, who you play. You know, if Dallas at the time that Atlanta was winning in the East and they beat the Knicks, if Dallas was in the East that year, what would it look like that same year that they went all the way to the final? would have made it to the finals instead? You know what I'm saying? So it's like matchups make a big difference. In terms of the MVP conversation, I don't think Trae Young is there. I think Luka's close, but I don't think Trae is there yet.
But that's because, see, he's not there because of something he'll never be able to address, which is his height. If Trae Young was 6'6", he's not. Luka,
but he's still doing things he's still scoring points like he's 6'6".
No doubt, and he's an all-star.
And he's an all-star.
But even you are hesitant to say, you call him the same thing, but you're hesitant to say. Because
it's hard, if for whatever weird reason, it's hard for a guy that's that size to snatch the MVP. So I don't know.
Or to win a championship.
Okay. So I don't really know what goes into winning the MVP. Is it his scoring, but Steph obviously can win the MVP because it's just Steph. It's a different
deal. He's also 6'3", and
yeah, but
he's not that short.
But he's not like 7 feet tall.
No.
I mean, he's 7 feet tall probably compared to Trae.
He's under 6'4", and he's slightly built, Steph.
Yeah,
but Steph is like an extreme
But he just
outlier.
does some different stuff. Yes. And I think when you look at Trae, he's small guard who shoots a lot, who scores a lot of points. But that's really what you're getting. Like, you're not getting that MVP performance night in and night out.
If you give him a max deal, which you have to.
Yeah, I'm going to pay him.
You need at least one other player almost as good as him, plus an incredible supporting cast if you want to win a championship, right? Like, you got to do a little more. You got to put a little more around Trae than Luka.
See, it's almost like, what's the difference? Like, when I look at it, I'm like, okay, what's the difference between him and Ja Morant?
Ja has much more athletic ability.
Okay, so he has more athletic ability. But like as a player, though, you're getting the same thing.
What do you think about the Nate McMillan firing?
I don't get it, but it's life in the NBA. Nate McMillan's a terrific coach, but if your voice is no longer heard, then it's time for a change. And whether the hierarchy of Atlanta thinks that his voice is no longer heard and the players aren't responding, if players aren't responding, it's easier to move the coach, who's a very, very good coach, a great communicator, who basically got that team to the playoffs, than basically move players. And who knows? I mean, the NBA is a different world because it is a players' league and it's player-driven, and you've got to retain your assets because you have great investments in your assets. And in a lot of ways, unless you have a Popovich or someone like that, it makes many of the coaches expendable.
Can the Hawks win an NBA title with Trae Young?
No.
Because?
No. He's a terrific player. He's a phenomenal watch. But you can't win an NBA championship with non-defenders in the playoffs. Just can't. I mean, look, Trae Young, can he lift your team in a series? Sure he can. Can he lift your team in 3 series? I don't think so. He's a terrific talent. Is he tough enough, competitive enough on defensive end? Is he too much of a liability on defensive end? Is he too ball dominant? I don't think that's the case because the NBA, you're going to have that. But do you think, Keyshawn, that guy is the centerpiece of? If you look at the DNA of championship NBA teams, name me one team. He's not Steph Curry, so let's eliminate that. Steph Curry, think about the players that he had around him. All right, does he guard like Steph Curry?
No,
Steph is a willing defender.
Yeah, he tries. Steph sticks his nose in there. But look, Coach, let me ask you this, though. So if you can't win one with a guy that doesn't play defense, can the Mavs win one with Luka? Because essentially, if for all my money, that's the same guy. One guy's bigger, one guy's smaller.
Oh, one guy's bigger, but also one guy's a lot better, too. I mean, one guy's bigger, one guy rebounds the ball, one guy makes plays for others, one guy stretches the defense, one guy's a great passer, one guy has a physicality to him. I think it's 2 different worlds. And one guy also can be surrounded with different pieces to complement him, especially when you put him with Kyrie, as opposed to, like in the NBA, the point of attack is the most important thing to guard. If you can't throw the basketball, you can't set your defense. All right. Well, Luke is not guarding the ball at the point of attack. You can hide him off the ball some. You can hide him by, blitzing or running a second defender. But you can't hide when you have to guard the ball at the point of attack. That breaks down your defense. your initial defense. And then all of a sudden on the first pass, first play, you're basically in rotation and you're playing behind the ball, and it just can't work. Luke is don't be comparing Trae Young to Luka.
Well, Coach, I hear you. Coach,
hold on, Coach. No, but wait, Seth. It's not really a comparison. My whole point is you said defensively you can't win an NBA title with a guy that doesn't play defense. Luka doesn't play defense. He scores a lot. He handles the ball. He does all those sort of things, which essentially is the same thing as Trae.
And rebounds it.
But then you just broke it all the way down in X's and O terms for me. So, it's a little bit different based on what you just said.
Key, I want to bring up something you brought up earlier. And here's the argument that I find difficult to rebut, Coach, talking to Coach Seth Greenberg here on Keyshawn, J. Willimax, ESPN Radio. Coach, on the one hand, I agree with everything you said about Luka. I'd rather have Luka than Trae. He's better. He has more upside, et cetera, et cetera. They've done the same thing so far in terms of team success. Neither plays defense. Both has gotten to a conference championship. I can't refute, I was arguing about it earlier, and I'd forgotten that Trae actually won 2 playoff series. I thought it was 1. But no, they both won the same number of playoff series in the same season. Objectively, why is it that is it because he's taller, Luka? It's because to the eye test he looks better? The bottom line is
no.
Trae has gotten pretty far in the playoffs. What's that?
He's gotten pretty far in the playoffs, and they're struggling to make the playoffs. Right? I mean, it's not they're struggling to make the playoffs right now.
Well, that's true, too.
The other guys are going to be in the playoffs. And here's the thing, Max. Luka impacts the ball because he can rebound the ball. Luka impacts the ball because he's a terrific passer. Luka impacts the game because he can score on the perimeter. He can also take you to block, back you down, do a double team, which makes the game easier for other people. Now, look, Trae has vision, but I wouldn't, and he could be a great passer, but he is not the facilitator and ball mover at times than Luke is. And look, Luke is a high-volume shooter, and he has to have the ball in his hands, and they're going to find a balance with Kyrie.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.